All right, so we are doing the April 11th Game Mechanics AMA. For anyone that was tuning in live, this was probably the most frustrating AMA to try and listen to since there was just like a million disconnections. They ended up putting out a pretty well edited version of it on their on DeFi Kingdom's official YouTube channel, which I listened to try and understand what the heck they were talking about yesterday. But it was game mechanics, so it was a little all over the place. You know, a lot of alpha camp coming from some of the just like live AMA questions. Other than that, it was pretty much covering some stuff on like Gen Zero, Crystalvale coming up soon, Jewel airdrops coming up soon, some of the egg hatching coming up soon, and that was kind of the takeaway I got from it. So Dosa, did you have anything else that you thought were kind of like the main points?
Yeah, so Frisky at the beginning talked about just pets coming, new profession quests, which they talk about a little bit later, some new stats, dueling, and then the Gen Zero launch for Crystal Vale as well. So that pretty much, in general, kind of summarizes what this whole thing kicked off with. The, Surprisingly, there were some other things with the actual battle system as well. So the gambit system I thought was cool.
What did they talk about the
Uh,
gambit system?
that was, I think, the first AMA written question. Yeah, so they're just confirming if what the battle system would be like, and of course they said that it's not confirmed or whatever, but they've done a lot of testing and they're in later stages of testing with that gambit system. And I didn't know what a gambit system was, to be honest with you. But Beeks, do you want to explain that, or I've got a general understanding of it now?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the gambit system.
Yeah, so a gambit battle system is similar to like Final Fantasy 12, I think, is what I was seeing online. It's kind of like the famous usage of it. And basically, what you do is you pre-program your squad for how they're going to react in a battle. So the 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 strategy is more along the lines of like thinking through what a battle could entail ahead of time, and then setting up your team to react to those different situations, versus like first person shooter where you're just in there doing the whole thing yourself, which makes sense for kind of a blockchain game, right, where it's a transaction type turn based thing, kind of, right? So
Cool.
that's in general what a gambit system is: pre-programmed type of strategy.
Yeah, I guess I just never heard that name used, but yeah, what you're describing definitely sounds like what DeFi Kingdoms has described. But yeah, that's cool. All right. So the Gambit system. So yeah, we'll just do a quick rundown here. So like you said, the feature we have some really exciting upcoming features such as pets, new profession quests, new stat quests. That will be cool, and dueling, which I'm really excited about. He said he spent the entire weekend working on that. There's a ton of exciting things that we're working on in tandem. So three of the new quests. It was training quest, which I guess is that the stat quest, and I think is that related to the pets. I think almost like a pet. Um,
Yeah, the training your pet, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, okay. Yeah, so training quest, the level 10 profession quests, which will be like having these pet bonus rewards that are connected to the training quest, and then the third thing is just pets in general. And I know I'm skipping a little bit over the place here, so bear with me. I promise this is organized chaos here. So we'll go to the pets here. So not all eggs will be hatchable from the get-go. We are going to focus first on the blue and the gray eggs, green and yellow after that. Then gold will be the final one. So three tiers to the egg hatching. There will be a staggered approach to that. We'll be getting those out with each big patch if we can. Eggs are soon. The hatches in the marketplace, so we know that. And yeah, blue and gray eggs first. All right. So eggs, training quests, the higher profession level, profession level 10 quests are all coming. So that should be fun. Very much excited to what the higher level quests are going to look like and what those rewards will be, and if they're going to be introducing new kind of quest items, and that will be kind of the next step to crafting and buildings and on the land and all that. So that'll be fun. The next one was the jewel airdrops in the next couple days. So the same way that if for anyone that got the crystal airdrops, apparently they're just going to airdrop it into the jeweler in Sarandale, and that's that. So I guess we're just waiting for their announcement. Also in the jeweler, if you go look, I just saw today that there's a charity function in the jeweler. So they're doing they are matching up to $250,000 in donations to UNICEF, and yeah, so you can like use one or Jewel or Avax, and a couple other options I think in the jeweler in Sarandale, and you can donate if you feel compelled to support that. And so that was everything they addressed up top. So yeah, so we get into the AMA question. So here it is, the Gambit system right in front of me. Yep, so we just went over that. That sounds fun. And yeah, that's, I guess, what the name of the idle style combat, right, that you're talking about. So just kind of setting everything up in preparation kind of before the system and then letting it kind of take its place. So Bolon, yes, we are looking at a Gambit system, a Gambit-like system for combat. All right. Frisky Fox, just kind of touching on the locked jewel situation again. That was another question that got brought up. Just, sticking to his guns that it's a security kind of issue at the end of the day, and that they kept that feature in the locked crystal as well for the same reasons. Just if things get compromised, there's just a way to handle that. He was saying that they want to work on a long-term system, that they are kind of frowning on the botting system, and they don't want bots to run the game. They want real players to play. Does anyone have anything to say about that? I don't want to not touch on that if people want to talk on that, but nonlinear penguin, just to cap on the leaderboards. The only thing I'd add to that is we released the initial version of the leaderboards to create friendly competition. It's still very young and it's in its infancy, so continue to expect improvements on it. If you have questions, please ask. So on and so forth. So egg hatching, yep. So Huber, with hatching, we're getting very close to pets. Right now we are working on 3 things: the training quest, the pets, the level 10 profession quests. In particular, the level 10 profession quests in the pets have a lot of tie-in, because some of the pet bonuses will affect professions. To give you a sense of what's coming, there will be an upfront cost to setting up your egg for incubation. So kind of like a summoning fee, if you will, or a hatching fee. Since there's not summoning with pets, of course, it will use some of the lesser used resources in the game and not a giant jewel cost. Time will be an element as well, where you'll wait for it to incubate and then hatch. Hatching will be a transaction like summoning, where you have to wait and see what you get. Not all eggs will be hatchable from the get-go. Like we said, blue and gray will be first. So that's that. Gold will be last. And then Frisky Fox was just saying that, I guess initially he didn't really envision the pets to be this kind of this fortuitous of a feature to the game, but I guess as the team has grown and different things, that they're going to become a little bit more substantial of a feature of the game. And I think that was a little bit driven from just the community hype. I think everyone clearly was expecting a lot from eggs when they were just so incredibly rare, questing wise and everything like that. It was I think they were okay, let's definitely elevate the game with this.
I kind of think that if they had stuck closer to the original roadmap, that maybe they wouldn't have had to do that. Like maybe they wouldn't have had to expand on what it seems like they internally they had to make pets be more than what they originally thought. But I'm wondering how much of that is due to the fact that the community's kind of just had to run with their own ideas for the last few months.
Yeah, man, that's a good point, because whenever I read that, I was thinking more along the lines of they delayed the pet launch because they had become more complex than they had originally intended, so that roadmap became not a realistic type of thing, right? But I could also see the case where it's like, well, the roadmap was too complex. We over promised, and now we're under delivering. So what we're delivering had better be damn good, right? So I could see it both ways.
What do you guys think about the fact that not all pets will be hatchable um at the like from the jump as far as like the different colored eggs?
As someone who doesn't own any green or blue or gray eggs, I'm not particularly
Yeah,
happy about
Yeah,
that.
I'm
I
in
would.
that same boat.
I
I'm in
mean,
that same boat.
my only thought to that is it's not so much about the egg color, which all seems like across the board, as it is still the questing function and like the fishing and foraging are just different mechanically than the gardening and mining. So
Yeah,
to me, I think it's probably still just attached to that and not like about like they're like specifically choosing which color egg is going to come first or last. But in terms of the
yeah,
golden egg, I have no idea what the golden egg means then. So.
Yeah, like yeah, I think it was kind of like I understood why they staggered the actual release of the quests. Like, they were actually doing it as they went along, and the project was, I'm not gonna say smaller, but I mean it was a bit smaller back then. But I feel like if you don't have to do it that way, I don't see why you would do it that way. Like it's not like they have a small team where they have to be like, oh well, we have to devote these resources to just this, and if we expand beyond this, we don't have the resources to do it. Like I just don't believe that at this point. So I'm not sure. Like I get the response would probably be something like, oh, we want to make sure everything's tested and we have our ducks in a row before we move on to the next thing. But I just don't see what the point of staggering, like why would you do that if you don't have to, that's just kind of how I see it, but I don't know.
yeah. I mean, as far as gardening goes, like there hasn't there been talk about adding like multiple gardeners to a single garden quest or something like
that
that?
that was confirmed a while ago. It just
Yeah,
nothing's ever really came from it, but that's
right.
been confirmed by Frisky.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so there's that piece of it, I think. But then there's also like gardening and mining aren't in production yet either. So I'm wondering if maybe they chose these as like we can put these pets in the game and put them into production, versus having everything still in beta. I don't know. That's
Do you
just
think that'll happen?
I dude. Probably not, right? Probably not. Probably it's all going to be in beta.
I'm
But
waiting for
I'm
that.
just thinking
I'm
like,
waiting for that announcement when they in the DFK main server when they go, guys, big news, the gardening quest full like push to production, and we're like, what? Like I've been gardening
Yeah.
for like 4 months.
what's production, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the egg hatching. I mean, that's a big topic, so I don't know how much more we can cover about egg hatching, but it's just TBD all day long. Blue and gray first, and other than that, I guess I wish there was a nice picture here. I don't know. Have they shown the full? Do we know every single like potential pet that we can get? I don't know.
I did see that like a few minutes ago they just posted like what one of the pet cards will look like. They stripped the text from it, but it showed like the animation and has like a name and number on it.
All right, so we'll get through the AMA live questions. So talking about token sinks and Joule and stuff like that, and I was happy with the answer. Basically saying that there's a lot more stuff to be had. Like it's not just the vendor, it's not just the alchemist. That's not the end of it. And so Frisky really was insinuating that there would be not just not just questing items to or gold sinks or anything like that, but actual jewel sinks. And I'm really thinking like once land and buildings and kind of the bigger item stuff, we'll really see where jewel plays its part. And I think there will be ways for all this kind of like jewel unlocking and no one spending it, or there no utility to spend it, and only looking at like the hero summoning is like the only jewel sink in the game right now. And I think so I think there's just going to be more, and that the bigger items, that's where we're going to see those dual syncs happen. So looking forward to that. It was your classic question askers, Mendez. Wanted to touch on the topic of the Gen Zeros. Yeah, so this was, the redistributing the gene pools for the Gen Zeros with the introduction of the two new Gen Zero classes, the Seers and the Berserkers, I think, in Crystalvale. And that I don't have a Gen Zero, so I'm not going to be your greatest source to like follow all this that closely, but essentially they're going to ask or try and get every Gen Zero holder, incentivize every Gen Zero holder to re-roll the, certain classes and subclasses to their gene pools so that they can redistribute all 10 classes effectively across the, what is it, 2,500 total Gen Zeros now. So that is essentially that. I don't really think there's more to say I think it's a good idea. It's just the execution is key, and we'll see how many people participate. And that's that. But I think the concept is fair, and they've been thinking about it the right way. Frisky Fox will err on the side of caution, or err on the side if it can be legitimate, then we will assume it is, but we need to retrain the others.
Yeah, that's the Gen Zeros 1 through 19 that have the transcendent
Oh,
skills.
right. Yeah, I see. Gotcha. Yeah, that was the follow up on it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So Driz asked about the locked jewel and just if there was any consideration about that. So Frisky Fox's answer, and during the live AMA, this got a little disconnected, so it was, this question and answer was a little fragmented, but he said, great question. First of all, it's not a cliff. Many misunderstand the unlocking. Basically, the amount that will unlock each week will be equivalent to the amount that was unlocking each week earlier this year. It's not a huge thing we haven't seen before. It will reduce more and more over time until very little is created, and then the unlocking will start, and it will go back to how it was earlier this year he's referring to. The game was intended to always have a constant flow of unlocked jewel as more use cases and utility, aka the jewel sinks, and he's also referring to gas being used on DFK chain. It will add more utility and the need to spend jewel. In terms of plans to incentivize people to hold jewel, yes, we always do. We always try to keep this in mind with our releases and the type of behavior we want to incentivize. I've personally been thinking about things we can do around our locked jewel balances to incentivize people that are more long on it than others. So that'll be interesting to see what they do for that. But we still have 4 months or so out. So I think where are we at? April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, I heard some people saying September and October, but yeah, so I guess August. But 4 months out until the unlocking begins, since the block time with Harmony has been pushed back quite a bit. And that's that. So this was the most important question that has been on everyone's top of everyone's mind, is the jewel to crystal ratio and how to decipher whether it's going to be a 1-to-4 ratio or a 1-to-1 ratio or anywhere in between. So Ogre had asked the question, goes, I may have done a thing on Twitter trying to talk about the utility of our power token, just wanted to confirm it will be the same number of power token to chain on any chain to summon, so that it'll be like 16 and 16 jewel for a Gen 1 10 out of 10 kind of thing, and it'll be a 16 and 16 crystal for a Gen 1 10 out of 10 hero on Crystalvale as well. And so Frisky's answer was yes. So really that's the answer. That's what it is. So anyone have some thoughts on that? Yeah, that was a very Chad yes. Yes.
Well, they've said this for a while now, but
Yeah, you were early on this one, right? You're an early believer in the 1-to-1.
well, yeah, I mean, as far as like summoning goes, but then like they go on to talk about it after that. Like, there's also a lot of other things that happen, in the game and in their own individual chain economies, right? That change how the price reacts. Like, until heroes come out, really, like there's no reason for crystal to be worth one jewel, right? Um, But
Yeah,
when
because anyone
heroes
that
come out,
wants to buy it, like spot, quote unquote, like they have to get the premium essentially for the APR or buy Jewel and have to pay for the premium to swap. Is are you thinking kind of like that or?
yeah. Well, I mean, as far as like things that would encourage people to like hop between chains to do different things, right? Like, there's no reason for any like you can't summon anything on Crystalvale, right? So you just can't. So that's not going to impact the price. But yeah, until the heroes come out on that and they have summoning on Crystalvale, like there's no reason why. But I think there's also that it's somebody mentioned in general chat the other day that there's only a quarter supply of crystal compared to jewel as well. So there's a smaller supply, but things cost the same to do. So I'm thinking it's you know not really a 1-to-1, and that's kind of what they're saying. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but
So I'll read through this just to see if anything catches me the second time. But so Ogre asked a follow up. Over time, is it expected that the price of Jewel and Crystal will meet? Not that Crystal will go down to Jewel, but that Jewel could go up to Crystal. So it's not Doomsday. But can you speak to it? So Frisky Fox says power tokens will have very similar utility. That said, there are things at any period of time that could impact one or more than another. And so one thing that came to my mind is anytime they do like snapshots or that they make people that want to hold as opposed to sell the other, that could definitely do any kind of short-term fluctuation. But he also said, for example, right now, Crystalvale has a really high APR and having higher emissions as well right now. There are things that are exerting some external force on the price as well. You'll see a lot of the same utility of these power tokens with the exception that Joule is also used for gas. It will be interesting to see how it plays out. We don't set prices, that's up to the community, but as far as mechanics go, the power tokens will have a very similar in-game utility with the exception of Joule's gas. But yeah. All right. And Ogre's last question here was, so it's a paradigm shift then. People are looking at the token supply and saying, hey, it's a quarter of the supply, so price should reflect that. But you are saying power token utility will be roughly the same, even the supply will be different. And that the other items noted with the fee sharing, with partnerships and whatever could specifically drive up price differences between power tokens. Yeah, I guess the fee sharing. Dreamer came in and was talking about some of their game partnership, or some of the partnerships that they had, and I guess the big important thing for them is figuring out the fee sharing. But I'm not really sure what that had to do with the price disparity between Jewel and gas, really. I mean, Jewel and Crystal. Let me check the chat if anyone else does. But anyway, so Dreamer says summoning utility equal, but gas is paid in Jewel. So they said that like for the third time. So yeah, I guess long term that will be a different burn rate. But right now, and I know they can control it, but right now it's like super negligible. So I think people, as great as that is, it's also not like the greatest. I don't think that's like if it's too expensive, then everyone will hate it for obvious reasons. Lots of variables in play, Frisky Fox says. There will be lots of arbitrage between the realms. We added a quarter of the supply, but an entirely new chain. Idea is that we bring an entire chain of total value locked, but a quarter supply token. We will follow a similar model for future expansions. It's a really good opportunity for existing players to have existing utility for their power token and be able to get in on the ground floor. All right, so there you have it. Speculation is 1-to-1, but, premiums until further notice. But the utility is 1-to-1. The price subject to change. And that's pretty much it. So closing remarks, you can guess what it said. Bullish. Anyone have anything to say? Any questions? Any opinions? Any ideas? 2 weeks in with the Crystalvale launch, claiming, unclaiming. I've been told you can Polygon and Matic subnets. It's interesting.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I totally forgot about the Jewel airdrop that they're gonna do.
Yeah, I did too.
Totally. I'm like, wait, what? I get more money? That's cool.
Well, that's why I found the charity thing because I went to the jeweler. I was like, did the airdrops come? I was like, oh
That
nope.
Is
that poor hot air balloon's never gonna get used again, man.
Right.
maybe they can put old Sam Shandy up there and he can sing his songs to the kingdom.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
new update. Sam Shandy has a new song, and gardening got pushed to the main site.
oh, is that what
I,
it
I,
was?
I
That
don't
was
want to
just
be that guy, but I'm gonna go ahead and be that guy. It felt like this was a whole lot of like nothing happened. Like I don't know. You just went over a bunch of stuff, and I have no new answers.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just more questions.
Yeah, no, it really isn't us being fudders or anything. It's I'm in enough servers related to DFK to see that this is a very consistent sentiment, and I'll probably cut this for the record, but just to be honest about it, I mean, yeah, it's like we're not like, I mean, everyone's like, oh, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm feeling like this, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, everyone's feeling like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think the last 3, 4, 5 AMAs definitely have given that kind of like, you know, saying a lot but saying nothing all at once, and it's just it is what it is. So, risk manage the portfolio accordingly. That's really all I can say. But I'm still
yeah,
bullish. But at the same time, it's like you just got to take care of business at the end of the day.
yeah. I just wonder if they're almost afraid of ever coming to the end of their road. You know what I mean? Like you're this game is in development. Well, that makes things a lot easier for you when you don't have a final product to say that this is what it is, right? So what we were talking about earlier with delaying the eggs, like why would you do that unless you really had to do it for some reason that's just unknown? Like one reason could also be that maybe you're trying to stagger things out as long as possible just to make it seem like the game's always in development, that there's always something coming, um, even though you could have released 5 things this week instead of
Yeah, it does definitely feel a bit like the goalposts are moving.
So I got two things I'll say to that. Is one, I forget where I read this, but part of the goalpost moving thing, I think part of the strategy with feature releases was in tandem with the unlocking schedule, and so as the unlocking schedule got pushed back, some of their feature rollouts had to get pushed back as well. It just, I think, economically is the way they've kind of blueprinted that and drawn that up. So that's theory number one on that, and theory number two, well, I'll just stick with theory number one. But yeah, is that that, and then that was a big thing you saw with the DFK subnet, or the DFK chain subnet, was they were like, yeah, we're not doing block times anymore. Like we're gonna that was them correcting one of the early problems they discovered in going off block speed instead of just like a weekly mission schedule. And they're like, yeah, we'll correct that. So that's something I'm seeing,
It
and yeah.
it's strange that that even like happened, right? Because like if you read the documentation, it says like this is the time based on this amount of block speed, or this is the amount of time based on this block speed. Uh, could change. Now, if I'm developing something and typing that, as I'm typing that, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, if you're planning everything on increments of 2 seconds, well, what happens if that's 3 seconds? That's like percentage wise, that's a fucking huge leap.
Or the opposite, where Harmony's promised 1 second finality for quite some time, right? So I wonder what would have happened if that happened. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
unlocking schedule came up real quick. So hey, I don't know. I don't know what's a benefit of the doubt versus coincidence versus you know
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like adapting to the real day circumstances. But yeah, I'll leave the floor to anybody else if anyone else has anything they want to talk on or cover. I didn't mean to like breeze through it, but it just you know nothing too hard and fast just yet. Just a lot of kind of brief updates on some stuff. Yeah, the only thing I'd say about the locked jewel is and I said it the last one of the last recaps is that I think it's one of these things that the skeleton's out of the closet either way, and so I think Driz brings up a good point that it's like, man, what do you say about a savvy whale that's looking to get into the game and goes, okay, I'm gonna buy 100,000 Jewel, and I mean, even at this price, it's like, why buy it at 470 anything if I can go buy 100,000 Lock Jewel for $2, and then just go buy some miners and just work on unlocking it. And there's a couple answers to that. I mean, first off, there's the unlock rate from miners isn't like the all access pass to just like free Jewel. I mean, there's only so much you can unlock, even at the highest levels. So when you do the math, it's like you're not going to beat the like unlocking schedule either way. When you're playing, especially playing at that level, I mean, it's something like if you bought 100,000 and like in the first 2 months you could unlock maybe like 6,000. So still like a ton of Jewel or something, but just not at that quantity. And like I said, it's already here, so it's not like $5 Jewel before Lock Jewel is discovered. It's $5 Jewel now that Lock Jewel is discovered and in the market, and so that always makes me actually feel a little bit better about everything.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Locked Jewel is still like a topic of conversation. Locked Crystal would make more sense to me, but like I thought we were kind of past the Locked Jewel thing. Thought like all that was priced in.
I mean, yeah, I haven't heard a lot of hype about it lately, but I imagine there's still a market out there where people are swapping it back and forth for pennies on the dollar, maybe.
Yeah.
I would say I'm very shocked to see that there is a mechanism to move Locked Crystal after everything that happened. But
Well,
I get it because the hardware wallets and stuff like that. But
yeah, they talked about potentially because they whenever that question was brought up, like they said, we had considered, doing a thing where you would have to open a support ticket, and then we would have to verify who you are and all this stuff. But then you run into the issues of like, well, how do you actually verify that it's that person, right? Like it's at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of wallet addresses, and so there's a lot of issues with trying to do that from their side. Plus, it's not decentralized in that case, right? Because how pissed would you be if you couldn't move your money around to stop somebody from ganking it from you because you're waiting for DFK to respond back to you, So they talked about a couple reasons why they did it, and I think they said that there would be a way to move Lock Crystal. I saw, I don't know, I think I saw something from one of the sites that trades Lock Crystal or Jewel that they figured out how to do Crystal as well.
Oh yeah,
So I think you.
What's her name? Xtina or whatever the dev's name is. She already or Cryptina. She already figured it out, or they already figured it out.
wasn't like going way back to when Locked Jewel like the first time it like got sold. Like I'm thinking like this is probably I don't know November, December. Um, but I maybe I'm making this up, but I swear I remember reading something about how like their code was forked from what Uniswap I think, and how the transferring of like whatever mechanism actually is used to transfer Lock Jewel was like part of the code already. So like they apparently didn't even write that. Um, and that was like their. And again, I'm going off memory here, and my memory sucks. Uh, but if that was the case, like why would I don't know? It seems like that answer got pivoted at some point, and it turned from like, oh well, that was part of the code already that we forked into like, oh well, this is for recovery and for hardware wallets and stuff like that. But I don't remember hearing that when this all first happened. I need to dig their Discord and see if I can find those actual statements.
Yeah, I do kind of remember something similar as well. Just it was a part of the package bundle, I guess they purchased or whatever. Yeah,
and it was like they like sat down and like thought about like, okay, how are we actually gonna respond to this? Okay, well, we'll say it's for hardware wallets, right? Everyone has a hardware wallet, right?
Well, I think what you see too is it's, and I hate to be the one that says this because but it's like it to me it shows that it's more of an ideological answer as what's the best answer because they just said it's like yeah we can make this centralized, we can build our customer support system, we can create a ticketing, but it's like that's not what we're doing here, that's not what we're building here, that's not what decentralization is all about. So it's like could we solve problems, yes, but that's also not the question or the lens we're trying to problem solve through. And so when you kind of take that grain of salt, it's like yeah I mean uh, there's just pros and cons to it all, and so they're like yeah I mean that's just that's how I feel about it, right? At least my takeaway on that. I'm keen to see what they come up with to prevent the unlock dump. I mean, that's what I think too. Is that's that scheduling. It's like as soon it's like, oh yeah, here comes the jewel unlock, and right as that comes, it's like, and here comes buildings, and they're going to cost this much jewel, and the next whatever the I don't know. I just think they're gonna when the next level profession quests and gardening and the mining, and you're starting to get more jewel like per quest, and starting to get a little more liquid jingle in the pocket, and then more jewel is used rather than just summoning, but now it's like really building stuff and not just questing items to craft potions, but like some serious jewel to get some weaponry and some land and some buildings and all these kind of bigger sized items in the metaverse. Then that's like where I kind of see that. I can see that intersection that needing to be had rather than being like, and here's just like buildings. Like I think it needs to coincide with a lot. But
Speaking of buildings, has any land actually sold yet?
I don't know if it's sold, but I saw that one. I think there was one listed for like 28.7 at some point. That one's no longer up there, but I don't know if it's sold or not, or someone they just took it down. I'm not fortunate enough to be on the other side and know what that mechanic looks
yeah, I
like.
don't know if it sold, but I did see that a community dev transferred a land plot that they owned, and they have a guild, and so they like created a DFK account that wasn't their personal name, but basically say like if any of us like owned a piece of land, and then we went and created like OXG guild, gaming guild, and then they were successfully transferred the plot of land, which is like a risky transfer, right? Like imagine you send that into like the abyss, and it goes nowhere, or can't find it. But he ended up transferring it to their second account, and so now when you look up the sale or the plot of land on it'll say like owned by, and it says like the guild name, which is super cool.
Yeah,
I
that's
was like,
pretty cool.
yeah, I was like, dang, that's next level marketing right there. So even the land's transferable, but yeah, I don't know if any actual land sales have taken place. That'd be a crazy buy right now.
Yeah.
And I guess land tournaments, they didn't touch on that, but that should be coming up super soon too.
I have a feeling that's not going to be as soon as people think it is.
You're probably right. Let a man dream. But yeah. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here, and that was the AMA, and I'll see you next week.